Okay, well, good morning and welcome to the June 17th meeting of the Go Virginia Executive Committee. I'd like to welcome all our visitors. I'm John Enzavino, chairperson of the Go Virginia Region 6 Council. And Sarah, would you call the roll?
Yes. John Anzavino,
Present.
Jeff Sapersky,
Here.
Jackie Davis,
Here.
Jan Urquhart will not be with us today, and Jenny Matern.
Here.
Okay, that's a quorum.
Okay. Uh, we have no one here for public involvement other than Dr. Young. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. No, we have no written or submitted public involvement, and there's no one in the chat.
Okay, first item of business is the consent agenda. That's an action items. And in the consent agenda, we have approval of the April 21st, 2025 minutes. I hope everybody's had a chance to review them. As usual, they are very well done. Did anybody have any amendments to the minutes that were presented for April 25 of the Executive Committee?
Do not. I'd move approval, John.
Jeff, thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Is that
Jackie.
okay, Jackie, thank you. We have a motion to approve the minutes of April 21st, 2025, and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Sarah, you've got the financial report.
Yes, this is not in the packet because I just got the final information for it today, so I'll include it in the packet and send it all back out to you. So let me pull it up. I wanted to just get our pipeline in a good order before so we could go over our future funding. We did at the state board meeting last week on June 10th, they did approve our per capita amount for next year. I think it only went up over a few $100s. So we will be rolling over approximately, okay, can you all see my screen? Just to make sure.
Yes.
Okay, so if today's project is approved by Go Virginia, then we will be carrying over $339,143.25, which is by far the lowest amount we've ever carried over, which is great. That means we're spending our money on projects. And so that's a really good news. So our budget for next year will be approximately 1.4 million for the FY26 year. So we do have in here, we are closing out a few grants, but the Virginia Sea grant is being closed out. That's state funded, so we don't get any of that leftover money back. And then the Workforce Now project for the chamber, I think it was giving back only about $4,000. It'll go back in our per capita fund. So they spent most of their money. So we have sort of in our pipeline, and I had in later in the agenda to discuss the pipeline, but I kind of want to bring it up now since we're looking at the financials. We do have on here the Blue Catfish, which will be voted on at our July Regional Council meeting. It is a planning grant, a feasibility study. That is going to be $100,000 asks. And just to remind everybody, we do have $250,000 limit that we have every fiscal year that we can spend on planning grants. So if today's is approved, that will, I think we'll only have $60 we didn't use in FY25 for planning grants. So that's good. So we'll take up 100,000 for FY26. We are looking at doing an aquaculture and commercial fishing feasibility study as well, looking hopefully to turn that into implementation planning for the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula. This is in partnership with VEDP, their food and beverage manufacturing division, and has spurred out of a lot of the oyster farmers, commercial fishermen, saying that there are a lot of issues in their industry that's preventing them from growing, such as distribution logistics, manufacturing of the equipment that they use that they usually get from Canada or France and now are going to be under tariffs, workforce needs. And the biggest one that they've all said is branding for those Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula oysters. So that's going to be a feasibility study. The applicant is going to be the Rivers Region Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Council. And they've been talking to a lot of the localities and the companies about doing this. So that'll be coming up. The Regional Entrepreneurship Initiative Planning Grant will be closing out soon. We'll have a presentation on that in July. And so they're looking at also applying for implementation probably at the last round. So October Regional Council meeting. And they're approximately going to be about 860,000. I do want to say CyberBytes has been talking to both VEDP, Stafford County, Spotsylvania, and the city of Fredericksburg about an AI mobile bus. I think that will probably likely have to wait until FY27. The state is doing a Go Virginia funded AI assessment planning grant right now. And I think it's their recommendation to wait until that's finished before we do any kind of implementation projects around AI. And we are included in that. It's Region 2 and Region 3 are the leads, and the Virginia Chamber is the applicant for that. And they are meeting with people in our region. Vernon Green is our representative for our council on that advisory committee. So that'll probably have to hold off. And then I'll get into some other pipeline stuff later, but I just wanted to give you just an update on our current project financials that, I'm really proud of our region for only carrying over this much. We're not getting any taken back this year. So that means we're spending our project money.
Sarah, circling back to the aquaculture planning grant that we're probably going to be seeing. We had quite a discussion at our last Economic Development Authority meeting about the Virginia Seafood Council. Are they engaged in this process at all? Because
Yeah.
I've got a waterman on our board who is a pretty smart guy, and he's saying that the Seafood Council is really involved in marketing of Virginia seafood, including oysters, and there seems to be some disconnect with VDP, with the Virginia Waterman, with the Virginia Seafood Council. Is the intent of the planning grant to pull all that together?
Yes.
Okay, because
Yeah, it is. Because I think we're seeing that with blue catfish is there's these siloed things going on and no one's talking to each other. And so that's for the blue catfish planning grant, we'll have VEDP represented, DHCD represented, and the VDAX work group, as well as VIM. So the goal of this is to sort of, I think what we're hearing from some of the actual fishermen and aquaculture is that it's not just marketing, it's a whole thing. It's everything. And so I think if we can bring in all of our assets in the room together, including the Watermen's Association, oyster growers, I think getting everybody in the room on this is what's going to be the most important and the goal of it.
Yep, and I would say that you've got an application, and our EDA is leading that application process. Jeff, if you're still involved with the EDA over there in Lancaster, if you could get some support from Lancaster, I'm not sure we've had anything yet.
Sure. My chief credit officer is chair. I'll get in touch with him.
Okay, very good. Okay.
That's all I have for financial.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is application discussion and determination, and we have with us Teresa, and with a last name like Anzavino, you would expect me to get this right, but it's Teresa Seglekin.
Oh, Segelkin. Thank you for trying. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, I apologize. Teresa is going to bring the University of Mary Washington's Medical Management Certification Pilot Program Planning Grant application to our attention and for our action today. So, Teresa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, as John said, my name is Teresa Segelkin. I'm the Director of Continuing and Professional Studies at the University of Mary Washington. I've been in this role for about three and a half years, and I've had the opportunity to work with many organizations across in the immediate Fredericksburg region, Stafford County, and Spotsylvania County. Stafford has been a really interesting place to land post-COVID, and I'm super excited to be here. I come from about 15 years in higher education, a stint at Headquarters Marine Corps developing training and curriculum, and I've worked my whole career at helping to develop workforce pipelines for students coming through community college and into the workforce or into four-year degree programs. I'm always excited at the opportunity to help grow a region and grow a community around needs that we see. The University of Mary Washington and Stafford County Public Schools worked together this fall to identify areas of gaps in post-secondary education. And one of the areas we noted was in practice management. This is the person who runs a medical practice, be that dental, primary, specialty care, mental health care. The people who are in charge of making the office run efficiently, helping to keep appointments, making sure that folks are following the rules as they should, they do all of that. We realize that in this region, we have no post-secondary education available for them outside of getting something like a bachelor's degree in business. Most folks who take on this position have been in the medical field. They tend to be nurses who have risen up through the ranks, or physicians who are opening their own practices and looking to expand. So what we saw was that there was a lack of business acumen available to them. Knowing that that was the case and that we don't in-house have the expertise to manage something like this, we looked to what might be available nationwide. And we found a credentialing agency, national credentialing agency, there we go, called the Practice Management Institute. They've been around for about 40 years. And they've worked with Virginia at the state level to credential folks in the region, but it was a long time ago and we don't have anybody right now in those positions. So we worked with them to see what kind of certifications they offer, and one that jumped out to us was the Certified Medical Office Manager certificate. This would help prepare people wanting to take on the role of being a practice manager to step into that role over time. We also looked to see if this was a problem in our region, not just that the education didn't exist, but was it something that needed to be filled? And as we were able to get resources from Sarah and learn more about what is available in the region, we learned that we actually ranked pretty low in being able to meet the needs of medical offices to meet the community. We found that VOEE ranked us as moderately effective, but showed that every region, every locality that we were looking to work with, Stafford, Fred City, King George in particular, and Caroline County, although we didn't have someone to speak to over there right away, all were not able to meet the practice entity needs of the population. We have a lot of anecdotal data that says it's difficult to get an appointment, that people have to take a lot of time off of work in order to get an appointment and travel to Richmond or to Fredericksburg in order to see a doctor. We spoke with individual companies and businesses who noted that this impacts the workers' productivity. They have to take more time off. And we spoke to certain other ones who are looking to expand in the region, such as Universal Dynamics, who said that kind of access is a factor that they consider when they ask people to relocate to a region. We don't have all the numbers, we don't have all the information yet. So a big piece of this study for us is to better understand how current healthcare infrastructure is impacting the growth in our region. And that will help us scale programs from it through my office and continuing studies, as well as with the College of what will soon be Health Sciences through UMW, all the way down the line through the community colleges and into the K-12 system. So this planning grant has two main pieces. We want to research first to make sure that the problem we hear about is actually the problem that exists. And once we do that, we would like to run a pilot program for this certificate with about 20 to 30 people in it is what we're hoping for, with about 17 to 20 passing rate.
Thank you, Teresa. I do want to note this is going to be the first, and I'll scroll down to the healthcare addendum, the first project involving the new healthcare addendum to be sent to DHCD. I've been working closely with them, and Teresa's done a really good job of getting letters from industries, because that was the big sticking point, is that for Go Virginia to fund a healthcare project, there has to be showing that one of our industry clusters, one or more of them, is saying that their inability to grow, relocate, or hire talent is due to healthcare. The other option is to get like a regional economic development organization or EDA to say we can't attract businesses here because of the lack of healthcare. That's a harder one to pinpoint because there's not a lot of businesses that are going to say, yeah, that's why we didn't locate there. But Teresa's done a really good job of getting that support in the letters. There's one that's not included in today's packet because it came in this morning, and it is from Cindy Mack at Universal Dynamics, because she was out of pocket while we were working on this. But Anyway, I want to open up the floor for any questions for Teresa.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. I'm a little confused about what the focus of this is geographically. Is this for PD 16 or is it for the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula? Is there applicability later on to the Middle Peninsula and Northern Neck? I'm just a little bit confused. I see a letter of endorsement from a business in Kilmarnock, but there's, no reference to any services provided in Kilmarnock. So tell me a little bit more about that, if you would.
Absolutely. As a nationally recognized credential, it will be applicable across the entire state. So while these are the localities that I could speak with right away and the businesses that I had connections with to speak to, I do believe that once we are able to advertise and recruit from the regions, we will be able to share this information out further. So to say a person pursuing the certificate would then be able to go back to their home county, their hometown, and begin not necessarily begin a practice, but step in and run a practice. This will apply to all of Region 6.
Is the training planned to be online training, in-person training, hybrid, or?
I am aiming for hybrid, but I'd like to look at the research as that comes into to see where most of the applicants would be coming from, the students who would be looking to take the program. There is a 4-day in-person training component, but those are all consecutive days. And we would make sure that we're hitting a time that is slower, that folks would be able to sign up in advance and prepare for that kind of time away, should they be coming from a further distance, such as in the Middle Peninsula. Any additional training that will come from this will be tied to the research that we learn for the specific regions, and that would be online or in a hybrid setting.
I noticed in the documentation you provided, you've noted that there are 200 jobs available right now in the region. Is that PD 16 or is that across all 3 planning districts?
You did a great job diving into it. That was back in January, and that was just within 25 miles of Fredericksburg. I did an Indeed search.
Okay. And then your outcomes are, once you determine what the depth of the problem is on your pilot program, is 20 trainees, 17 passing the exam, and 4 businesses impacted. And I saw a little bit later in our analysis or on one of our forums, 6 folks who were placed into the workforce. What happens to everybody else?
What I think will be happening with these other folks is that many will be looking at this as professional development. So these are the folks that I'm hoping are taking on new positions. As this is something we're just bringing to the region, I expect some professional development opportunities.
Okay. And one other thing, being a former county administrator and currently an EDA board member, I'm real cautious about board endorsements. I noticed that there was a letter of support from Fredericksburg EDA, and that appeared to be from a member as opposed to the entire EDA board. Is that correct, or am I missing something there?
It was from the member. She was not able to meet with the board and discuss prior to writing the letter, but she had verbal agreement from the rest of the board.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Folks, I've monopolized the questions so far. What other questions do we have for Teresa?
Hey, Teresa, Jeff here. I have a question. Get past the research in pilot 1. Talk to me about the sustainability of it going forward.
Absolutely. So what we are hoping is that we'll learn the depth of the problem at that point. What I'd like to do from then is work closely with our regional partners, both in healthcare and in our school systems, in our community colleges, and in all the way down through K-12. We want to better understand how we can build a pipeline of getting people prepared to take on this role, because it's not something you're ready to do right after you graduate with an associate's or a high school diploma or even a bachelor's degree. So how do we structure in for folks what they need along the way from that high school graduation point all the way up to when they're ready to take on a role like this? What we would like to do there in the financial feasibility is we would look to charge tuition for those going forward if we were to move this beyond a pilot year.
Thank you.
We've got a lot of workforce training and trying to place kids from high school into various vocations. how will this dovetail with all the other planning grants or folks that are out there working right now? Is there going to be any dovetailing of that? Or is this just to determine what the extent of the problem is, and then try out the pilot program?
This right now is to determine the extent of the problem and try out the pilot, but I have always been passionate about ways we can scaffold folks into the roles so that we don't have a problem later on. We know that right now we have limited access to healthcare in many of these regions. Again, anecdotally, we're looking to codify that in the research so that we're able to say, yes, this is definitely a problem. From there, we would look again at the steps that folks need in order to make this not a problem. So some of this is a bit proactive. As we start seeing industry growth in these more rural regions, we want to make sure people are ready to come and they can recruit the folks that they want to recruit to come out to these areas. Healthcare being one of the factors behind having a desirable and healthy community can help draw that skilled workforce into the region for folks. So to kind of go back to your question a little bit more directly, we want to be able to, while we see this as an issue at the moment, it's not a grand scale issue that we expect businesses to say, oh, we absolutely are never coming to this region because of this. We want to head that off before it happens and help prepare folks step by step to come into this role. And see what other roles are necessary too. That's the other piece of this. We see this one in particular, but I want to make sure that we are prepared in the other steps as well. The growth is happening. We want to be ready.
Other questions from the executive committee?
I have
I have
one.
a question, just a couple of things. I think the hardest thing, if somebody's graduating from high school and they're going into this pilot program and they have no experience running a practice, I think it's going to be hard for them to be placed somewhere with just the certification. I just see it happen all the time a lot because, as you know, we staff for a lot of businesses, and a lot of times it is really hard to place somebody with no experience. And that's where that's why we really kind of push with a lot of our clients is that internship. So those kids do have that experience in high school or in college. And I just, the whole practice manager thing, I guess is, I don't know, or the program, whatever you're trying to, for this program is I don't know if that's like a real true workforce need as so much as for the practice to run is that's really lagging behind. And I just know, because I'm in and out of doctor's offices with my daughter, is like every single time it's a new LPN or it's a new RN for the majority of the doctor's offices.
So you're absolutely right. And this is not something that a high school student should come into and be ready to go into the workforce with. But I think of it as you have that nurse who's done a really good job as being a nurse and is looking for what can I do next? How can I continue to share my knowledge and grow and support my community? Or do I leave the region to do that? This becomes an opportunity for that nurse to go and pursue additional education, to better their life, to have another step and continue to be in the region, in the field that they were in. But you're absolutely right. This is not something that a person coming out of high school would be able to do. Maybe willing, but not able yet. Understanding what the pathways are and helping to structure those pathways so that folks see that as an option is part of the goal here as well.
What is the salary of a somebody who is the practice manager? Do you know that off the, okay.
So what we were able to determine from the data provided by the Bureau of Labor Statistics is that this role can earn as much as $111,000 a year. It's a substantial salary, and it's a great paying job, especially for the region. We will see different levels of that depending on the office and depending on what kind of office they are running, but this was the average. And again, as you can see here, thank you, Sarah, it is projected to grow significantly over the next 5 years.
If I may, one of the requirements for this healthcare addendum is that the job that it's training for has to be on the VOE high demand occupancy list and a high wage job. And this is one of the top ones on that list. So that's how we got that part of the addendum was covered.
Okay. Other questions from the executive committee?
Yeah, Teresa.
Jackie, you've been, go ahead, Jeff.
I'm sorry. Teresa, how many course hours are there for that to get the certification?
Sure. So for the industry certification, it is 4.5 days. It's about 40 hours worth of content. So
Okay.
we would do it consecutively. That's the way this organization in particular sets up their certification. And we'll again look to make sure that meets our needs the best in this region. Additional time will be spent with UMW faculty. We're still determining what exactly the length of time will be. It will depend in large part on the research. Part of what we want to better understand is our region's healthcare infrastructure and how it's impacting the businesses so that we can tailor some of that content on the UMW side to meet that need.
Thank you. And one more question is, and this might be not a Teresa question, but a Sarah question. I think, Sarah, you were addressing this before, but I just want to make sure. And it's sort of a tangential A to B, B to C, that it's solving our workforce. You're comfortable that if approved and this goes up, this will satisfy per that healthcare addendum, the connection between healthcare and workforce for, what was it? IT data centers, manufacturing, and professional, scientific, technical service cultures. It's
Yeah.
that they, okay.
I
I know that's an
think
unanswerable question, so I'm
is.
giving it to you.
Because as we discussed before, you never know once it gets
Right.
up there what's going to happen. But I think it definitely covers every piece. The part that I think is, and Teresa and Dr. Young I've discussed this with them, since this is the first healthcare project that DHCD is getting, it's going to set the precedent on what is required to show that piece of the addendum that our targeted industry clusters are unable to grow, relocate, or recruit staff and retain staff because of the lack of healthcare. That is a very open-ended requirement. They don't have us like with the VOE part of it, the high demand occupancy, that's a yes or no. That's a data point. This part has been very much left open-ended on what needs to be required. I've been told that we will be set the precedent with this project, so I will not be shocked if we have pushback. I'm just being honest, but I I think it's worth trying to do this because it's, again, if I think, in my opinion, I think Teresa has done a good job of getting those letters from the companies in those industry clusters and from the economic development departments or EDAs from the localities that are involved. And we had to include on here, this was only the localities that are meaningfully participating was all we could include on here, not the whole service area of the project.
Jackie, you've been kind of quiet. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, we
You have a
have,
recommendation letter.
yeah, I did. We actually have a grant that's specific, that focus specifically on healthcare and the talent pipeline. And we have, through Sarah, connected with Teresa so that if this grant is approved, that we would be working together with it. I think it would be a really good project.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I missed your letter. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the executive committee concerning the application? So Sarah, summarizing this, you think this is a good project for us to submit as kind of a test for
I do.
healthcare, the healthcare
I do.
addendum?
I do. I think it's going to inform, to be honest, I know Region 3, which is Southside Virginia, has a lot of healthcare projects in their pipeline ready to go. And so I can see if this doesn't go through once they have one approved, and then there's been because they tend to push back a lot more on projects that are not approved. I think we could then open it up, but I'm also just interested to see what they come back and say is a requirement for that one piece of the addendum, because I do personally think Teresa's done a good job demonstrating that. And I think it's worth trying. Yeah.
Okay. 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 Hearing no additional discussion, does anybody wish to present a motion for approval of the planning grant for the University of Mary Washington's Medical Management Certification Pilot Program Planning Grant?
I'll make that motion, John.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I was gonna say, I wrote a letter and I didn't know, I can't remember how we felt about that, but thank you, Jane.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the grant application for Mary Washington. We have a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, well, congratulations. We move this to the next level.
Thank you
Sort of
very
feels
much.
like that they're not telling us what the speed limit is, but they'll let us know for speeding after we've done it.
That's a great analogy. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Teresa. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on. New business, we have nomination of new regional council member appointments. Sarah, we can take these as a group, is that correct, as opposed to singularly?
Correct. Yeah, we want to approve them as a slate.
Okay, we have a choice, executive committee members. We can approve as a slate, or we can take this one by one. How do you want to do this? Want to take it by a slate?
Late would be my recommendation.
I see Jackie nodding,
Agree.
okay, and I see everybody nodding, okay. So let's have a motion to approve the nomination of Stephanie Heinitz, Cindy Mack, Ernisha Hall, and Melissa Sheffield to the Planning District 6, Region 6 Regional Council.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I've got a motion to approve the slate as presented and a second. We need to do this by voice vote, or can we do it by, or do we have to do it by roll call?
You can do it by voice vote.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, well, now we're up to 21 out of 25 members, which gives us a little bit of a cushion compared to where we were. And these are all very good people. If you've had a chance to review the information they submitted, so they'll be at our next board meeting, correct?
Correct. I'm gonna try to do, I mean, they will be approved at our next board meeting.
Approved at our
And then
next
they will
board.
be voting members.
right.
I mean, they technically could start voting once we approve them, but then they don't have an orientation, and I think it's just better to wait until
Yeah.
October for them to be voting.
Yeah, I
Um,
forgot. Yeah, I forgot we were now the nominating committee too. Yeah, okay.
And I think this is good because we're getting two people from manufacturing industry on the council, and I think that's been a goal, is to get more private sector people from our industry clusters. So this will be, I think we've got some really good ones for this. So.
Good ones.
Mhm.
Good. Okay, well, let's move on to information items, and we're well ahead of schedule. So Sarah, you've got plenty of time to bring us up to speed on the items listed on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to start with, part of my goals of taking over the program director position is that I really want us to have better communication with our state elected officials. I know other regions do this and they tend to get a lot more projects through their pipeline. And so I want to make sure that our state elected officials understand what Go Virginia is, that when it comes up in their legislative schedule under, for any bills that are coming to amend it or funding, that they know what the program is, they see the local impact that it's having. So I just wanted to reach out to the executive committee before I started trying to schedule these one-on-one, or what I would prefer is for me and then a member of the executive committee to meet with them. So I know, Jeff, you said you know Delegate Pugh Kent. So that's, start reaching out to them and set up these meetings so that we can really discuss Go Virginia with them and make sure that they're aware of it and educated. I know Tara Durant comes to the GWRC meetings, and so I've met her before and talked with her very briefly about it. But the others I have unfortunately not been able to really talk to about Go Virginia. So I just wanted to make sure there was a consensus that this is a good way to move forward with the executive committee.
Well,
And if you go ahead.
if other regions are doing it and we're not, then we're remiss in fulfilling all of our obligations to push projects as far as and as hard as we can.
Mhm.
I would say, if you reach out down our way, Keith Hodges lives here in Urbana, and he's a pretty reasonable fella. He's one of the guys that's really interested in blue catfish. So
Yes.
that would be he would be somebody I would want to meet with along with you.
Yes, I agree. And I think, yeah, yes, I'll reach out to you and we'll try to coordinate these
Yep.
meetings. And I think that that would be really, Jenny, do you know Tara Durant?
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
can reach out to her. I mean, happy to reach out to her and set something up. I can reach out to her person, Kathy Roberts, and try and set something up. Does that work?
That's perfect.
Is there anybody else too that you're thinking of that?
So, Richard Stewart is the other senator in the
Okay.
area. Jeff, would
Richard.
you?
Sure.
Okay, so you'll do two with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, that would be great. And then Hodges and I think Tara Durant, and then I'll look at the others and reach out to everyone and see if there's anyone else that we need to meet with.
Okay,
That would
I'll
be
reach
great.
out to Sarah.
Okay, perfect. For the next item, Jackie has asked for me to serve on to replace Ian's spot on the Bay Consortium Workforce Development Board. I spoke with both Chip Boyles, who's technically my boss, about this, and they recommended it be something the executive committee have a consensus on. That's I will be representing the Go Virginia Region 6 program on the Bay Consortium Workforce Development Board. So as long as there's a consensus and everyone's fine with that, I just wanted to bring it up.
I
Okay.
know how hard Jackie works to get representation at her board meetings, and I know you'd be a consistent attendee, so I'm all for
Yeah, perfect. Okay, the other item that I want to put on everyone's calendar and be aware of is the Go Virginia State Board Retreat. They've done this in the past, and it is where there's actually a state board meeting, but then the regional council support org staff and council vice chair and chair are invited to it. It was in Danville last year, and there was a lot of discussion about that being really too far for a lot of people, so they've moved it back to Richmond. The date is September 9th, and I believe it will be at the Reynolds Community College. They are opening it up this year to anyone in the regional councils that want to attend. So there will be a reception on the evening of Monday, September 8th for just the chair and vice chair to attend, but then the actual state board retreat on the 9th is for anyone. I highly recommend this. I've emailed Joel to make sure he'll be there in person as our state board representative. And I wanted to open it up to the executive committee, to anyone that wants to attend. When I get more information, I'll forward it to you all, but I wanted to put it on your radar calendar wise. It's a really good way for us to interact with state board members and DHCD staff. So just wanted to put that on your radar. Again, that's all I have, is that it's September 9th at Reynolds Community College right now.
Yeah, and I attended one of those meetings a couple of years ago with Ian, and very informative and very useful. And it's always good, I guess, to put a face with a region. So I think it's broke some of the ice with the state board members, that there are folks in Fredericksburg and in down region. So if you all can attend, it's worth going to, at least a portion of it. I know it's takes a chunk out of your schedule, but it's worth trying to get to. So September 9th, right?
Yes, September 9th. Then again, I'll send more information as I receive it. I do want to talk a minute about staffing. So I think right now, what we've decided to do and discussed, if the executive committee is fine with it, is we're going to bring on board Kim Allman. She is a consultant that works with Region 4, which is the Richmond area, and Region 7, which is Northern Virginia. I've worked with her a lot at staff retreats for DHCD, and she does the quarterly reporting, remittances, and closeout reports. And I've been wanting to pick her brain for a while because she's a really good job of tracking data for projects. And I think we could adopt some of her methods. So Kate and I have reached out to her and discussed her coming on as a contract basis to handle our quarterly reports, remittances, and closeout reports, which would help me out significantly because that's a huge time chunk, and that's what she does. That's all she does is this for Go Virginia. And we have the funding for it. It would require, if you're all okay, at the regional council meeting, we will do a budget amendment to contract services, but with the staffing shortages, there is plenty of funds there in our budget for this. We're not going to backfill my position at this time. I think we want to wait and see what the needs are, and see if we can pull other staffing at GWRC to help out with things like minutes and social media and things. So that's something that's put on hold right now, but bringing Kim on, she's very good at understanding Go Virginia. She's been with the program since the very beginning. So I just wanted to bring that up to you all and see if you had any questions or concerns about that.
I don't have any concerns, and I recently finished an engagement as an interim where I was kind of like you are, the chief cook and bottle washer, doing everything from the minutes to the financial reports to the policy development. And I know how time consuming the, if you'll pardon the expression, grunt work is. But, but if you've got somebody to do that and it relieves you to focus on bigger picture issues, that's what you should be doing as an economic development manager or director. So I have no problems with it.
Yeah, I'm excited because I think she could bring us a new way of tracking our projects and really collecting and analyzing the data of our metrics. So I think it's going to be a value add, even if it's not long-term or short-term. We're doing it just for a short-term basis to see how it works out until we can kind of decide finalizing on staffing. So it will mean Jackie, we'll have to change our templates, but we're going to adopt her templates so for projects. So that's a conversation we have to have with our current subgrantees. And then the last thing I did want to go over a little bit further with the
Oh,
pipeline.
wait just a minute. We want to
Yeah.
get a consensus on that. How's the rest
Oh,
of
yeah.
the executive committee feel about that?
I'm supportive of Sarah, just for clarity. It's just there's no aggregate budget effect. It's just difference between salaries down to contract services.
Correct.
Okay. No, I think it's a good move. Utilize some specialization there where you can.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
All right.
Anybody else have any thoughts? Any questions?
No, I think it's good, Sarah, Sue, I just glad you're not going to be doing both. So you're not kind of like bogged down on your other job. So I was curious how that was going to work. So.
Yeah, and I've taken, and just for your knowledge, before I took on this role, I was also doing things for the GWRC. That stuff has been taken off of me as a whole, and I'm just focusing on economic development right now. I am still helping out with the SEDS, which I'm happy to do because I think it coincides really well. So, and I skipped the G&D plan update, so I'm going to go backwards
Yeah,
on that.
sure.
That's because that's what
I
it
was
probably,
going to say,
yeah.
wait a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going well. I just wanted to give a brief update. We did complete our industry roundtable calls last week. All except manufacturing were very well attended. And I thought went really well. They were all virtual. I think just the timing of it being summer. So the consultant is going to reach out to some of the contacts in the manufacturing industry sector to do individual one-on-ones with them. Cindy was the only one that attended from Unidun. So, and she was in Mexico and attended. So, they're going to reach out to some others. I know some had family emergencies that they couldn't attend. So, but all the rest of them were very well attended. I'm very impressed and happy with TPMA. They are extremely organized. We have biweekly check-ins, so it's been a good fit. They are working with RKG, who is the consultant conducting the SEDS, to make sure we're all using the same data, that it's all consistent, and they're actually going to use the same business survey. They're going to change theirs and add a few questions that are relevant to Go Virginia. But that way we're not duplicating efforts or they're not using completely different data sources. So I've been really happy. They're going to give an update at the July Regional Council meeting and talk to the council members at that meeting about specifically if we want to look at any other industry clusters. Energy has come up as a potential cluster for us to be looking at. And so they want to talk about that, or maybe even looking at removing some of the one or two of the industry clusters that we have on there that we really haven't been successful in getting projects. So any questions?
Sarah, will we have a draft of that before the July meeting so we can eyeball it?
No, and the timeline on this is really tight because of the DHCD deadline. So I
Yeah.
think what we're going to do is have another executive committee meeting in September. And have the executive committee look at the first draft, but it'll have to be approved at our October regional council meeting because it has to be turned into DHCD no later than October 31st.
And I remember that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think what we'll do is have, again, once we talk, I talk with them, I'll nail it down a date and send out to everyone if you're available. Our next executive committee meeting will have to be in person because of FOIA. So we'll see if we have one before then, but yeah, and that way at least you all can look at that draft. So since we can't do it in July. Okay. Last is the project pipeline. So I know we discussed some of this in the financial report, but I really want the council to be involved in the pipeline more and more driving projects and making those connections. So we talked about the REI implementation plan. I'm hoping we can spend all of our project money next year because the trend has been every 2 years, the General Assembly reclaims unspent Go Virginia money, and we've lost some of our per capita in that. The regions that spend all their money don't lose any. And we're really close this year with only having about 1.4 in our per capita for FY26. So some of the things we're looking at is Go Tech. King William School District Division had reached out on their own to Go Tech. And if you're not familiar, it's a career exploration program for middle schoolers that has been very successful in other Go Virginia regions. It just got 2 approved at the last state board meeting. It's basically a thumbs up from Go Virginia. And it usually, the last 2 projects that were approved at the state board meeting were 900,000 around there each. And it brings in the equipment, the curriculum, training the teachers, and it's doing things like manufacturing, medical services, 3D printing, so welding, and it gives hands-on experience to the middle schoolers for career exploration. And there's been a big interest from the Middle Peninsula on this. So King William, King and Queen, Essex County have all expressed interest in this. And so that's something that will either be this FY or next FY. I think that's one of the projects that if we do end up spending all of our per capita funds, we could dip into the competitive fund with. So that's a really big opportunity to have that come here. The other thing I want to talk about is that there was a project approved at the state board this last round for Region 8, and it's a lineman for lineman electricians looking at the electrical grid needs for data centers. We could do that because we have IT data centers as one of our industry clusters, and it's supporting that cluster. So I just want to bring that up. I'm hoping to talk with both Dr. Kennedy and then Dr. Gullickson's replacement, or Tina Lance at Germanna, about doing this because it is through the community college. I think this is a big opportunity for us to have an impactful project. We're going to have a lot of data centers and energies that everyone's talking about it. We have someone from, REC and the Northern Neck Electric Co-op on our council. I think it would be a really good fit. So that's something I'm looking at trying to convene and drive for our region. I think if we see projects in other regions that are going well and approved, that would be a good fit for our region, we should be looking at replicating those.
Yeah, there's one down in Southside Virginia that's taught at which was Fort Pickett, now Fort Barfoot.
Barfoot.
Yeah, and it's a very well-respected program by the RECs down there, or
Mhm.
by the electric cooperatives, and it really trains a lot of good people.
Yes, and they had another application that was approved also to expand that program to more dual enrollment and night classes. They're also doing another one looking at dual use of data centers and greenhouses for controlled environment ag. That's a feasibility study. I'm
Wow.
interested to see what their study says when that comes out. That was another one they had approved. Germanna also submitted a Southern Crescent Regional Commission application for a mobile trades unit to go around to schools specifically for Caroline County. I'm going to reach out to them. GWRC is the convener for SCRC for Caroline County. That's how I know about it and have seen it. I'm going to reach out to them if that doesn't get approved, or if it does, SCRC money can be used as match for Go Virginia, about looking at that as a Go Virginia project, but for the whole area, not just Caroline County. Yeah, that's all I've got for now.
Okay.
I
Any
really,
questions?
want to focus on that pipeline. So
Okay. Well, we may have a project coming from Middlesex as well. Are you aware of it?
it's on my list, but I didn't want to bring
Okay.
it up if you
Okay.
wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah, anything with, that's the other thing, anything with site development. I did hear back because we were looking at doing a site characterization planning grant for the Middle Peninsula as of July 1st. And I let Clara at the Middle Peninsula PDC know this. As of July 1st, the Virginia Business Ready Sites Program is going to have money for site characterization.
Oh,
So it
good.
has been the directive of the state that VEDP will now be doing site characterization, not Go Virginia, but we can still use Go Virginia site development planning grants for identification. So site identification projects, or for your due diligence, initial environmental engineering reports to tier them up from a 2 to a 3.
Okay.
So
Good. Okay. Jeff.
Just one quick question, Sarah, for the 4 new board members, you mentioned orientation. What exactly do we do to make sure, they feel
Yeah, I
engaged?
have
they
about
come-
an hour-long call when we go through slides and educate about Go Virginia. I send them our bylaws and
Mhm.
we go over those. One thing I want to bring up with the regional council meeting, I don't think any council is doing this. We're supposed to be doing COIA training every year. So we do a FOIA and COIA training with the new members when they come on, but we've not been doing it yearly. So I think that may be something we could do in October. So that's what we've been doing with them. That's the project. I send them the information on our current projects that we have for them to look over and familiarize with them. This is the new batch that's coming in. This is what we've been doing. So I've met with Joe and Kyle Allwine, and then I'm meeting in person with John Bateman. We were supposed to meet. I went out to the Northern Neck and toured some of the aquaculture farms, commercial fishing, and then we went to the festival hall facility, like the building, and saw it. And John and I did that. We didn't have time to actually talk about Go Virginia, but we are planning an in-person one soon. So one thing I like about this group, I've met with Jenny and she's very intently been involved in learning and she's been doing the roundtables. So I think it'll be good. Ernisha has a project with us. And then Stephanie is very, very well informed about Go Virginia, and Melissa and I will probably have a more intensive orientation. So
And just in addition to the technical training for the board, is there a role for someone on the executive committee just to give them the rah, we need your engagement, attendance is important, that it comes from a fellow board member rather
Yeah.
than you having to, whip them into shape, for lack of a better, you know what I mean? As
like
far as
almost a
just,
mentor on
yeah,
the council.
something
Yeah, I
like
like that.
Just saying, it's really important that, you're the designee, you're on it for a reason. Here's how we do it. I just think it's, I know with more members, we've sort of have the quorum a little bit, not quite as tight, but as you know, it's been sort of nip and tuck for some of our meetings.
Yes, yes. I think that's a great idea. I think we can start doing that 100%. I mean, Kyle Allwine was on one of the industry roundtables. So I was encouraged to see that engagement. And I've been pushing that in orientation, that like we need you to show up. You need to be there and be engaged in the work groups and all of that. But I like that idea a lot. I think that would be really good. I'm really excited about our new members. So I think we're going to have a lot of good engagement going forward. We may need to talk about ones that are not engaged later on though, but yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the executive committee?
Thanks, Jan, for joining us across
Yeah,
the
hey,
pond.
Yeah,
Would you like to
impressive.
see the view?
Yes, I do. That's why I said
Yes.
something.
Yeah, make
me
us
see.
envious.
I'm not sure I can, I think I can do this. Wait a
Oh,
minute.
my.
Oh
Oh,
my
man.
goodness. Stop.
No.
Well, thank you for taking time out of that to join us. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Wait a minute. There we go.
And
Very
where are
nice.
you?
I am in a little village called Beaulieu, I never say it right, next to Nice. And that water is the Mediterranean.
Not too shabby.
And it's not bad at all.
And
All
it's
right,
it's
well, thanks.
overcast here, Jan.
It's actually for the first time that I can remember. Well, last week in Paris, we had some rain, but it's been really sunny and hot, which you'd expect in Nice in June.
Well, I learned from Audrey Hepburn growing up that if you don't go to Paris and it doesn't rain, then that's not really Paris. So you had a
No,
good trip.
it's never happened to me.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Anything else from anybody?
No, good job, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay. Sarah, thank you so much for your effort. And to each one of you as executive committee members, thank you for your time. I know that you have busy schedules and you're taking a chunk of time out of your day. So it's appreciated because the work that we do is important. So with that said, we'll adjourn the meeting of the executive committee. All right. Y'all take care and we'll
Thank
see you
you.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.